Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast, career advice from people in the business. With AFM having recently wrapped up in Las Vegas, I thought it'd be great to speak to two filmmakers who went, so I spoke to Henry Winnik and Lucas Rios. Henry's an experienced filmmaker, having been location manager on big films like The Wrestler and Insidious, The Red Door. Henry went over to AFM with his production company to look for finance for his feature film A Blaze in the Brooklyn Sky. And Lucas took over his feature film Till Death Do Us Part, and he was looking to talk to sales agents and distributors. I spoke to both filmmakers about why they went to AFM. I got their experience of the market, their tips for people going for the first time, and we also talked a bit about their individual projects and what their hopes are for the future. First up, here's my chat with director Henry Winnik. So the reason we're chatting is because you've recently been to AFM. So why did you go? What was your impetus to go to AFM? What was your main objective?
So our main objective is that for this film, we were looking for anything to bridge the gap to what we have raised to what we need to get to really make this a reality. So we're looking at like foreign sales, co-production opportunities, stuff of that ilk, and just networking in general. And I will say, looking back at it, I had a lot of fantastic meetings that I think, knock on wood, um, will flower into something very beautiful and something very much needed. So yeah, it was a very good time. I'm very happy to have gone, honestly.
And had you been before? Was this your first time?
This was my first time, and main reason for that because I had looked into it for last year and the year before. I didn't want to go until I felt comfortable that we had something to bring. Um, and I think that was something very important to me. I think it was also the smart move at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, you're paying for the ticket. It's an expensive ticket, flights, hotels, all this stuff. And if I had gone before, I would have networked. I'm sure I could have, talked to some people, whatever. But no one would take me seriously. I'm a first-time feature director. Like all the shorts, the awards, screenplays, whatever means nothing at the end of the day. So at least this time, I'm coming with them with a film that is partially funded, has a cast. Like the number 1 through 3 on the call sheet are cast with decent, bona fide actors. And we have our pitch deck, our poster art, our proof of concept, comparable film analysis, return of investment, and all this stuff where I felt comfortable going to these meetings being like, this is all we have, this is what we have, and them to be like, oh, okay, this is something like stable.
Yeah.
Where if I went before, it really wouldn't have gone anywhere. And I think those meetings I would have taken would have meant nothing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And did you, going into AFM, so this is for somebody who's maybe not been before, might be going into that position where they've got all of their bits together, they want to go and meet a load of people who potentially get involved in their film. Had you set all your meetings up before you went, or did you go, is it knocking on doors at the conference center?
No, I spent the last month or so, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, setting up meetings. When I bought my badge, you have access to Sonato and their resources, and they tell you to do the homework, and you really should, because I looked up all the companies, and as long as there was some semblance that this could make sense, I just emailed them, followed up, and I must have sent out 120 emails or so, and I got back maybe 10. But it's funny because if you don't know, that sounds like nothing. If you do know, that's actually a decent rate of return. And I was very happy. And I set up the meetings, and then from there, while you're there and you're shooting the shit at the hotel bar, talking to people, this and that, you can set up more meetings. I did not want to go and just knocking on random doors, because one thing I do know from other people I've spoken with is a lot of those companies do not like that. They'll give you ear service of okay, yeah, sure, but they set meetings, they have a schedule, and the whole thing is very exhausting. It's tiring. So then for someone they don't know, they haven't vetted, they don't know anything about them, to knock on their door, it's kind, I put myself in their shoes. I would be like, ugh, all right, what's this Yahoo want? Listen, now Yahoo can be coming in with something great, but you already had that. You're walking in at a negative,
Yeah.
and I do not want to start pitching when I'm in the negative.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good advice. And just talking logistics, so how much is a badge? Because so for me, I've not done AFM before. Always a bit of a Cannes person. Always go to Cannes because obviously it's closer to me.
Mm.
When you go to AFM, how much is the badge? I'm assuming there's different levels of badges. Is there for different types of people?
Yeah, there's you can go for 1 day. You can have like 1 day package to 1 through I think 4 or 5 day packages, and then with the multiple day packages they have like pluses, which means you get to go to all the sessions, some of the like mixing events, networking events. And so I did the 3 day plus package, and I think it cost me around like $530, um, which it is a chunk of change for an independent filmmaker.
Mm,
And
it
then
is.
couple that with the airfare from Brooklyn to Las Vegas. I was able to get a deal, but it's still like it all raises. So I'd say between the badges, airfare, and hotel, I probably paid around like $1,000.
Mm. And do you think are those the mixers where you're networking, the official AFM ones, though, are they worth attending? Were they? Did you get value out of those? Do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really became friends with this other production company from New York, and they have a like $6 million feature that they're almost like they're way closer than I am. But with them, they also introduced me to other companies. Like, hey, you should talk to XYZ. Actually, that's a company I meant.
Yeah,
Talk
not
to
them.
Joe Blow over here,
Yeah.
and they're really good. They might actually dig what you're making. Talk to Alan,
Mm.
whatever. So stuff like that happened, and it was definitely worthwhile because again, the nature of these markets is you got to schmooze, and you always got to be Arn. You never know. I know, like Arn Sunday, which technically AFM ended Saturday, but I had a meeting on Sunday with a company I was very excited for. It was my last thing in the morning, and I'm checking out at the hotel before I go to the meeting. And this other guy who's wearing the badge is checking out, and so I was like, "Hey, man, do you have a good AFM?" And he's like, "Yeah, we had some good stuff." Like, "Oh, me too." And we started chatting a little bit as we're checking out the hotel. And I go, "I have one more meeting left." He asked me who it was. I said, he's like, "Oh, that's really cool. Listen, man, after you do that, I'm with, blankety blank films. I don't want to mention names. Come down to our suite, let's chat." And so now I have 2 meetings.
Mm.
Um, and I wasn't fishing. I wasn't looking for it, but you have to be open to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's weird how those are the best. That's the best way into networking, isn't it? Asking someone a question about how we used to do it all the time. Be like, "Oh, how's your festival going?" And then you're not like trying to look at someone's badge and see if they're important enough for you to talk to. You're just kind of chill, having a nice chat with someone. Um, so logistics wise, because it's sometimes it's in Las Vegas, sometimes it's somewhere else. Is that right? It sort of moves all over the place, does it?
This is the first year I was in Vegas. I think it's always been like I think San Diego
Mm.
where it's been. They moved to Vegas, which I think they have a contract with the hotel that they're going to be there for the next couple of years.
Right.
So logistically, they were at the Palms Hotel. I stayed at the Gold Coast Hotel, which is right across the street. It was literally less than a 5 minute walk for me, and a lot of
Mm.
people stayed there too. So you saw a bunch of people with our red badges.
Yeah, I bet. And is it set up the same way as Cannes? Is there like a conference centery bit with little booths, or is it all hotel rooms?
Um, well, I think from the previous years it was more of a conference center type of vibe.
Hmm.
With this, it were all hotel rooms except for like small conference centers that certain production companies had.
Mm.
But for the most part, I would say 80% of the meetings you would take were in these hotel rooms. Which I'll say this: if anyone who's planning to go next year to Vegas, do it. But if you have a meeting at 11, be ready at 10:45 at least, because the lines to get to those elevators became exorbitant. And that became a thing. It became an issue. Like, even there's even like a Variety article about it,
Mm.
which, I have an old assistant director friend who, he's big in New York, and he's like, Henry, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad prep.
Mm.
And that's something I always take to heart. Where, like, yeah, there's no reason, if you know in advance, if you prep for it, there's no reason to be late. You
Yeah,
just get there
absolutely.
early.
Yeah. I've seen the pictures actually of those queues. They look pretty bad. And looking at, I'm sure you probably, as you walk around, you're seeing posters of movies and things that happen. Is there anything I always enjoy in Cannes, looking at some of the ridiculous things that are coming out? Was there a sort of vibe? Was there anything you saw you were like, oh, okay, there's lots of this type of film coming?
Um, they had a big thing for a lot of like religious based films. Um, and I mean, there was a lot of horror genre films.
Mm.
We're doing a genre film too, so
Mm.
that's it's a welcome sign. Um, but yeah, mostly I think there's a lot of like people leaving like pamphlets everywhere, not there weren't like posters so much
Mm.
as like people leaving swag of business cards, small like index card size posters and stuff like that all around.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So your tips I'm guessing are obviously you want to book your meetings in advance, which sounds like good advice because that's what we do for Can. Um, would you say it's worth, if you can only afford it for a day, is it worth going for a day, or do you need to commit to the pass so that you can go to those parties?
I mean, if you can do the multiple day, but if you can only afford the one day, at least that at least is something. As long as you stack it up, plan it out in advance so that you have a bunch of meetings to make it worth your while. Because if you're
Mm.
only going there for one day and hoping to meet someone and schmoozing, it's like you're setting yourself up to fail. Like, it could be successful, but like, why mitigate the risk?
Yeah. So I watched your proof of concept thing, which looks really cool. Um, had they all watched it before you got in that meeting room, or were you watching it with them?
Uh, so no,
Oh,
I
okay.
sent, the meetings I sent, I had sent my package of proof of
Hmm.
concept, script, pitch deck, character bios, all that stuff. I don't think any of them really did. I mean, it might have breezed through the pitch, but that's about
Mm.
it. And I didn't show the pitch deck, or not the pitch deck, the proof of concept film, just because it's a 7 minute short,
Mm.
and most of that meeting I want to be talking to the person, and showing them the artwork. Like, you gotta show them artwork, you gotta show them design, stuff like that. So we're doing that while I'm talking them through it, and I tell them, like, I do have a proof of concept, or still images from it in my pitch
Mm.
deck, um, and it's always with the follow up email. So like, one thing that would happen is that I was a stupid enough guy that I contacted a Vegas print shop, had like a stack of scripts, stack of posters, stack of decks, all this stuff cost us more money, and no, barely anyone wanted to take it because they're flying out. They don't want to put more stuff in their suitcase. But they all said, like, yeah, thank you for actually having, because I would bring it out of my bag, my messenger bag,
Mm.
like, I have this, and I would always say, but I know you might not want to take it with you. I have digital copies. And they're like,
Yeah.
that's fantastic that you have it here, but yes, please send it to us digitally. And that's where I'll send the proof of concept, because now they know me.
Mm.
Now they know what I'm doing. Now they're vested into actually watching it with a real critical eye.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I've myself, the first couple of years we went to Cannes, we actually, so long ago, we took VHS trailers with us, a massive bag of VHS, and I think we might have dumped half of them on the way home because no one wanted to take them. Once they've watched it, they don't need to keep hold of a 3 minute VHS. So that was quite disheartening. But yeah, having those digital assets is super important. And do you think? So you spent money on this proof of concept where you've shot 7 minutes. Do you think that's paid dividends for you to do that? Do you think that's kind of going to pave the way for the film?
No, I think absolutely. Like I said, I'm a first time feature filmmaker, so having that 7 minutes, you know, it's a proof of concept of the concept itself, but it's a proof of our own production company's skill to make this thing.
Mm.
So it's an investment that I think will alleviate a lot of investors and production companies like qualms with us. Um, and I don't regret making it at all. I'm very proud of how it came out, despite the fact that like any filmmaker, when the first rough cut you see, you fall into a deep despair cycle, and you're on the literally I'm on the floor just looking up at the ceiling, going, "What did I do? I don't know what I'm doing. Oh God!" And then my wife's watching, who is not in film at all, and she's like, "No, this looks good. This looks professional. This looks ready to go." I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, it's not. You don't get it."
And it does take a while to get it from that first viewing to polished enough to want to show it to professionals. Definitely. One thing I didn't ask you earlier about your badge, was there any, because with Cannes you have to sort of prove you're a filmmaker, was there any evidence you had to supply, or do you literally go on and buy it?
He's actually just went on by it.
Right,
Um,
okay.
and I will say there were a lot of people had those badges who I talked to at on the floor, like, "Oh, you." I mean, bless your heart, but you're not there yet.
Yeah, you've just bought a badge. You've just bought the
Yeah.
badge. So give me you talked about some of the good things that happen while you're there. What's the worst thing about AFM?
Um, I mean the worst thing, besides just like the exhaustion of it,
Mm.
it's the idea that I equated, like, if I was a video game character, my charisma meter just beep 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 went all the way down at the end of every day, and I was so fried and mentally exhausted. Um, is is also like knowing that there are a lot of sharks.
Mm.
Um, I had a meeting with one guy. It was whatever. He wasn't someone that wasn't a meeting that I was like really looking forward to, but I was like, hey, you never know. And I met with him, and in the first 5 seconds, I'm like, oh, you're that guy.
Mm.
And he talked my ear off, all that stuff, all the while knowing you're you're gonna try to charge me 20 grand for services that will never go anywhere. And there are a lot of people. I'm looking around this room, and there are a lot of people that are going to take that bait, and
Mm.
that's something to look out for. There are sharks in that water.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And then last one, I guess, would be when we go to Cannes, loads of parties, and it's a bit of a game trying to find out where they are and how to get into them. Because it's in that one conference center, is it very much hotel bar? Maybe some of these places have receptions. And are you the sort of person who, because you know the value maybe of networking at those events, are you trying to get into them, or is it how's it work?
Yeah, no. I mean, the couple parties I went to, I got them because I was talking to someone at like the hotel bar,
Mm.
where like some meetings actually took place. But they're like, oh, we're going to this company's hosting something. You should come along. Here's the invite. And then I meet someone there and like, oh, you should come to this one tomorrow. And it's part of the networking thing. Um, it's weird because of it's Vegas. There wasn't that one big conference center. You have to go to those things.
Mm.
It's part of the industry. It's a social industry. Um, it's one thing I read like on Reddit. People are like, I'm an introvert. How do I break? I'm like, I'm sorry, man. You're gonna really have to put yourself outside the comfort zone for this. It's part of how this industry functions.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And that is a tough one because a lot of creative people can be introverted because you spend a lot of time in your own head, and going to this sort of thing can be quite intimidating because you don't know who you're talking to. When you go up to somebody, you don't know if they're important, or like you say, if they're just trying to fleece people, or if they're all talk and they're not actually making a film. They just want to be hanging around with people who do. Okay. And is there anything else before I move on from AFM? Is there anything else you think a first timer should know about it?
One thing I would recommend, and it just from my own experience of something I got very positive feedback. So the film I'm doing is there's a big like heavy metal punk rock theme that goes through it. It's a revenge thriller that delves into that world. So what I did, I made guitar picks that had our production company on one side with the website, on the other side was the title font, which is all black metal, cool looking thing. And I had 100 or so guitar picks, and I'm tossing them out to people, and people I was like, "This is a really cool thing." Um, Making swag for your film and your project that isn't typical would help you stand out. Like if you're just having T-shirts or hats, it a lot of people do that, and also you want something that is easily transportable,
Mm.
so it doesn't immediately go in the garbage. It will live in their pocket, and then maybe this week when they are home, they reach inside like, oh, I forgot these guys. Yeah, I remember these guys. Let me check them out. You never know, but at least that also gives you a good impression. So getting some type of swag that's on brand to your project that will set you apart will help leave a lasting impression, and that's what you want. You want people to remember you.
That's really good advice. And we did it one year. We made a horror film, and in the horror film, it's like women trapped in a underground place, and there's like an alien in it, all sorts. But we'd done sort of gauze with blood spattered all over it, little pouches with the DVDs in. And you just see when people get it, they're like, oh, they're waiting to show someone else, and it gives them a bit more of a bit of a sizzle. And we've done little suitcases before, so yeah, couldn't agree more. That kind of unique way of presenting your film and having people being able to remember it and share it is brilliant. Really good, really good. And now here's my chat with Lucas Rios. So I've seen on your IMDb that you've made a bunch of shorts. Am I right in saying the feature you've just made is your debut feature? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't mangle trying to pronounce it. Can you tell me the actual title and the translated title, please?
Okay, so it's Hasta que la muerte nos separe. That's in
Yep.
Spanish, and it's the direct translation of "Till death do us part."
Yep.
You know, when it's like the marriage and the one who's like marrying them, he
Yep.
says that phrase.
Yep.
So it's a thriller about a wedding editor that finds a murder in the footage, and has to figure out who the killer is before he becomes the next victim. So it's a fun movie. It's a 85-minute movie. That was on purpose, just to I figured it was a cool snack when you're like looking at something to watch and looking for something to watch, and 85 minutes thriller, mystery, comedy. I thought it was a good mixture of
Yeah.
to make for a good product.
Yeah. Well, I've seen the trailer. It looks great, and I'll put a link in it if I can on the description, if I'm allowed to. Is it allowed to be released? The
Yeah,
trailer?
sure.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're
Perfect.
actually premiering in I think less than 2 weeks on Mar del Plata Film Festival. That's a
Oh,
festival here
lovely.
in Argentina, but
Hmm.
it's the only, I just found out, it's the only 8-year festival in all of Latin America. So
Wow.
that was like, okay.
Okay, that's good. And so also you went to AFM this year, and was
Yes,
that your first time going to AFM?
yes,
Yeah. And
yes, yes.
going into it? What was your main goals?
So as this is my first feature, I'm kind of taking everything as a part of, as like a film school, even though I did, the film school I told you about. The best way to learn is just by doing. And I thought to myself, like as a director, it's good to know all the areas that get involved in production, especially when it comes to getting to know the market, getting to sell the film, making something that'll catch captivate people's imagination. And as I told you, I really want to focus on making films that people want to see, um, because I really want to say stuff, and I really want to get to all the people I can.
Mm.
So at first you kind of think, oh, but you're selling out, or you're like losing your auteur side, but in time you kind of figure out that if you want to have a healthy career in filmmaking, you really have to understand that it's people who put money into it are going to see it as a product. And if they're going to see that if they give you $5, you're going to have to give back 10 or something like that. So
Mm.
you really, if you want to have a healthy career, you have to understand that. And to I don't think that looking at the market and making something based out of what you saw is a good idea, because by the time you start writing and develop it and shoot it and everything, it'll be too late because the market's moved to something else. But it's good to see what people react to and what people are maybe yearning for, and understand the business side of things. I
Mm.
think it's wise, for me at least, as a director. And I also, this is my first feature, and the way I did it is I put all the money up myself. Like I borrowed a lot of money. I'm like in a lot of debt, but I found out that, like, to break the cycle of not doing anything, I just needed to stop waiting for the perfect circumstances and just, throw myself onto it. A good thing that happened to me that kind of like made me click is that I found out I was going to be a dad. So I'm actually, he's
Oh,
asleep
you're
right
in
now. So
charge.
if
Yeah,
he
nice.
wakes, that's why I told you 1 p.m. because I had to go pick him up,
Right, right.
and my wife is off to work, so we kind of take turns.
Mm.
But yeah, when I found out I was going to be a dad, I was like, I'm not going to be the dad who didn't try, you know?
Mm. Mm.
So because I've been wanting to do this since, like, I was like 5, 6 years old, and I'm 35 now. So I'm like, what happened in between? And you realize that you're always, blaming other people, blaming circumstances. And when I found out I was going to be a dad, I'm like, I'm going to have much less time, and it's going to be a lot more valuable. What am I going to do with it? And for me, filmmaking is non-negotiable. So I was like, I need to just jump on it and bet on myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or I
That's all
veered
right. No,
off.
that was interesting. I mean, what I take from that is, so you self-finance your first feature, which I know a lot of people have to do. And I'd say if you're in a position where you want to learn everything about the process, making a feature film is the way to go. And unfortunately, if you've got to spend your own money, they say never spend your own money, but if you want
Yeah,
to do that, I've done
yeah,
it. You've got to do it. So I wholeheartedly support that. And I think from what I gathered there, you're going to AFM because you want to understand the business side of sales, distribution, all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. So you were
You,
talking,
yeah.
yeah, you're talking about like seeing what's out there. Was there anything when you went? Was there a theme to AFM? Were there certain films that seemed to be everywhere, or did you notice anything like that?
What I did notice, and it kind of like it made me feel good about what I was doing, because a lot of, the process right now is you're doing something that takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of, sacrifice. And you wonder if it's gonna pay off.
Mm,
And when I got to the market, you realize that a lot of people go there, like 70% of of the films over there, they're like looking for money, like to finance the film, right?
mm,
30% already have the film made or in process, like in post-production, stuff like that. And of that 30%, only like 20% are like of, acceptable. I wouldn't say acceptable, but there's a lot of competition out there. So the
mm,
quality has to be like I don't mean like, oh, on top, but it has to be something that when you watch, you're like, oh, okay, this is not a student film.
mm,
So I'm very happy with the quality of my film, especially for the money I've made it. And it was nice to see that I was like, I had a good product. So the reaction I got from, the poster and the trailer and the pitch and stuff like that, it was really good. And you realize that there, it's what I said earlier, there are like trends going
mm,
around, and they're like, okay, they're looking for family films right now. Okay, they're looking for horror films right now. And what gets people like really invested in they that you feel they react to it is when you do something, I don't mean original, because my idea is like kind of blow up in the style of Edgar Wright, but it's something that maybe wasn't made before in that kind of like mixture, and people reacted to it
Mm.
really like with a lot of energy. So that was like, okay, so this probably will pay off.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's good to know.
it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talked there about, so you had a trailer, you had like a, I guess, a book with a poster in, that kind of stuff. If you were to go again now, what would be your advice to like a filmmaker going on their first time?
Oh, I actually wrote that down. That was like
Mm.
my wife's idea. Like on the plane on the way back, just sit down and write what should I have done, what shouldn't I have done. And basically, if you're going on as a director, having a completed film, it'll be a lot better. I haven't had the experience of going to pitch to get money because I financed it myself. But if you do with a go with final film, um, always always have postcards, a lot of postcards. Sometimes a good way to get there's like a wall you kind of encounter when you're like trying to go to A24 or something like that, because they're like the big guys, and they're for sure not going to pick up my movie. But um I wanted to see if I could get in, because they had like this hotel all booked up, and they had like all the 10 floors booked up, and A24 was the last floor, and the previous floors you could just go anywhere and
Mhm.
knock on the door, and they'll see you, and they'll say, oh, we're not looking to buy anything right now, whatever. But A24, when you wanted to go, you had security over there that'll stop you and say, "Do you have a meeting?" And I was like, "No, I don't have a meeting." So my wife works. She makes something called alfajores.
Mhm.
They're like two cookies with dulce de leche inside, and chocolate and everything. And I took a lot of alfajores over there to AFM. So I had like a little bag with alfajores inside, and I put the postcard for the
Nice.
film inside. So I was like, um, I was walking towards A24, and they were like, "Do you have a meeting?" "Oh, no, no, no. I'm gonna give this to Vanessa, who's like," and I searched. It's a great thing when you buy a badge for AFM, you get Sinando.
Mhm.
That's a really cool tool, because you get to see like A24, Neon, whoever. You just write it down, and it'll tell you who's working there, and
Mhm.
it'll tell you specifically who's going to AFM. So a good thing to do is kind of study and make like a mental map of who's in charge, and who's with acquisitions and with selling, or whatever you're looking for. And that's how I found out like Vanessa was in A24. So I was like, I'm taking this to Vanessa. I wouldn't have had that information if it wasn't for
Mm.
Senando. So that's a great tool. Also, do your homework in that regard, and also get an email, like a cool email with a trailer, with a poster, with a pitch and everything. Send it out to sales or whoever you're looking for. Like, I think 2 months, 3 months in advance, because I send it like a month before, and I didn't get any responses because they're already like all booked
Mm.
up. They have no time, so it's best to kind of like start talking. Like long, long, long back. I don't know if that said that correctly.
That'll do. I
uh
get what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So book your meetings well
um
in advance.
yeah. Also, what else? Sit close to the buyer's lounge. There's a buyer's
Right.
lounge, and there was like a pizza place right beside it. There was someone I wanted to like meet, and I didn't realize that until I went to get some pizza, which I should stop doing right away because I'm getting so fat. But um, I was sitting right next to the buyer's lounge, and it's like one of those places you can't get into because you're not at like Universal or Netflix or
Mm.
whatever. But if you sit right beside it, you can start looking at faces and seeing who's there, who's not, and like try to meet them at the door. You do have to be very careful of how you come off to people. Like
Mm,
they don't want to be attacked, or "Hey, here's my film." And I feel like when you're there and you don't have any meetings booked up, the best thing to do is just make connections. And
mhm.
the best place to do that usually is like parties or stuff like that, because people
Right.
are like kind of like they're have their mind off work, and they're like, okay, I want to get to know people, just know people, don't know, I don't want to know what your film is or whatever. And if you see them the next day when they're like at AFM at work and stuff like that, they'll say hi, and you can start a conversation. They'll ask about your film, but the best place to meet people is like when they're like relaxed. Same thing with festivals. If you go, it's better to just connect instead of attacking them and just
Mm,
trying to shove your pitch in their face. It's best to just share what you both love. If you're at a festival, just looking at a film and say, hey, that film was awesome, what do you think? And try to start a conversation like more on the human side, instead of just work in your film, because they'll react defensively to that.
yeah.
um so
That's
that
that's
was
good
kind of my
advice.
advice.
No, 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 that's really good. And next year there's going to be 100 filmmakers sat in that pizza parlor. Well, that's a good tip. That is a good tip because places
Yeah.
like that pay dividends. And it sounds you're making being a filmmaker sounds a bit like an assassin. You're trying to get in,
Yeah,
use
yeah, yeah.
cookies to get in.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
scoping the joint. So it's good advice. Good advice. Um, so where are you with sales on the film? What's your plan? Have you settled on anyone? Are you talking to people?
Um, I'm actually focusing on finishing the film right now, because I'm doing the VFX. I'm
Hmm.
shooting like inserts I couldn't do while I was on set. And I'm kind of focusing on that right now, because we are premiering in that festival I told you about in like less than 2 weeks, on the 28th. That's like 2 weeks from now. Yeah, 2 weeks from now. Um, so I'm focusing on that, and as soon as I have the movie finished, I have a lot of people, like I gathered a lot of contacts that I can send the movie to.
Hmm.
They're kind of, some of them are waiting, some of them I have to like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. This is blah blah blah. But that's something, like the market for me was like getting to know people, and getting myself out there, and just when I have the movie like totally finished, and I already, most of them I showed the trailer to, and they were like, oh, this is interesting, I want to watch this. um but I don't want to make them wait too long, but I
Mm.
do want to finish the film, and send them off finished, because it's going to make a lot of difference. um but yeah, actually, I'm just waiting for the festival to see what happens. I think that I have a lot of people that that kind of came to me, and they were like, "Hey, your film is really good. I'm thinking of, are you interested of talking to Disney or and stuff like that?" But it's like the first time I'm doing the walk, so I don't know what's gonna happen. But as soon
Yeah.
as I have the film finished, I don't know if it'll be they'll come to me first or I'll come to them, but that's when I'm gonna start, actually looking for, to sign something.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
best of
yeah,
luck with that. That sounds good, and I look forward to watching the movie because I thought the trailer looks
yeah,
excellent. Looks like a lot of fun. Um, my last question was going to be about so yours is a foreign language film. Obviously, I've got no experience of selling a foreign language film. Do you think you're speaking to different people to me? And are there any barriers, or is it easier to get into different places if you've got? So it's in Spanish, is it the film?
yeah,
Yeah. So is it? How does that work with a foreign language? I'm saying it's a foreign language when it's your
yeah,
language.
yeah,
So.
yeah, yeah, totally. Well, I've actually always wanted to just, make films in English.
Mm,
But as I said before, I had to stop waiting for the circumstances, and making the film here in Spanish was like the right thing to do at the time. And an interesting thing right now is that people are kind of like breaking the barrier of having films with subtitles versus films, in English. They're a lot. They have a bigger market now than they had like 5 years ago, but it's still a smaller market than what English is. So
Mm.
what some people recommend is like, dubbing the film, which I'm not very fond of. I'd
Yeah.
rather, reshoot the film in English.
Mm.
Um, but I do have, and this is like a somewhat of a taboo subject right now, but there was a lot of people, that came to me, and I know they were going to distributors to try to sell a service of dubbing with AI, which
Yeah.
basically takes the voice of the actor and makes it say it in English, basically, or
Yeah.
whatever language. So that looks like an interesting proposition to me, but I'd have to kind of dig in a
Yeah,
little bit more.
I've seen it. I've seen some tests, and it is amazing. So I've seen
Yeah.
somebody. I did a test of myself speaking French. You wouldn't know I couldn't speak French. I showed it to the kids.
Mm.
They were like, "I didn't know you could speak French." I'm like, "I can't speak French." It is honestly, it is perfect. And I've also seen somebody translated it to Mandarin, and you wouldn't know. It's so
Wow.
that hopefully, obviously, there's a lot of downsides to AI in the creative industry, but I'm hoping maybe that's something that can be used in a positive way, like you
Yeah.
say, to translate your film. And I don't think it's, I did maybe like a minute clip took about a minute to render, and honestly, you wouldn't know the difference. So yeah, that's something that to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool tools right now with AI, with animation, and I come from that background. It's kind of scary, but I feel that if you don't, find a way to use it
Mm,
in your favor, I still think that whatever we give as, individuals and as people versus what AI is doing, I think there's a lot of value in what we do, but we do need to kind of understand what is the value we provide, because just using tools or whatever, it'll disappear in a while. I think we need to understand what the value we provide is. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try the AI stuff for
mm,
sure.
cool.
You said you're doing a film, right? Are you doing a feature?
So um, I've got a film that's came out on Prime at the beginning of August.
Oh,
So it's
cool.
so it's horror. I'll send you a link to it. It's a horror movie, but I've done that's my ninth feature film.
Oh,
So I've done a
awesome.
lot of it's all horror, all low budget, but yeah. So I've never been to AFM before. I used to go to Cannes every single year, which is very similar.
Yeah,
Um,
I went to the Marche this year
oh, you
too.
did?
That's my
Oh,
first.
cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well, yeah, yeah. So I love Cannes, but never been to AFM because it would cost too much for me.
Mm,
But yeah, so I'm. It's interesting how things have changed since I started because
mm.
my first three films were shot on film. When
Wow.
there was a lot less content, a lot less stuff out there. So
Yeah.
now it's changed massively. But I also agree completely with the subtitled thing. I think obviously someone like me who was a film student would easily watch a subtitled movie, but I do think it's becoming more of a mainstream
Mm,
acceptable. It's not such a big deal that you're watching something with subtitles.
yeah.
So I hope
Yeah. Yeah.
hope
Yeah.
that means your film gets a bigger, wider release.
Yeah. Let's hope so. I am
Cool.
selling the remake rights too, so.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, well, you know what? That was another episode we did on uh, an interview we did with somebody at Cannes, one of the sales agents, and they said that there's a lot of money in that. Is just selling
Mm,
the film to be made in a different language because it's kind of an existing property that they
yeah.
know works and that they can repackage and sell. So definitely there's money to be made. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you'd like to hear from more industry professionals, how they got into the business and how you can do the same, or you just want to listen to some cool stories from movie sets around the world, then please do subscribe to the Honest Filmmaker podcast.